In today's video, we are looking at the Corsair 220T RGB Airflow case. So this case is an ATX case by Corsair. It features three 120mm SP120 fans at the front. It also has a perforated front here to let good airflow into the front of your PC for all your hot components. And it also features the IQ controller, which can control up to 6 RGB fans in a hub. So without further ado, let's unbox this. Let's take an overview of the case. So here is our Corsair 220T RGB Airflow case. Now, before I go forward, I want you to know that I only paid £45 for this case, as it was a used case and I brought it on Facebook Marketplace. Now I think that's a cracking deal. This actually goes on Amazon for around the £70 to £80 price bracket. So to actually get it for £45, I think it's a really good deal and a bit of a steal there actually. So we're just going to take a little overview of the case now. So first of all, let's start with the front. Now, this has the perforated front, so there's going to be good airflow there. I do quite like this styling. Now, the logo at the bottom isn't the best because it is a little bit missed off with the perforation here, but I still think airflow is going to be great. At the sides here, I'm not sure if you can see, but I'll try and pick them up on the camera for you if not. There's actually quite a lot of gap here between the sides, and then to take off the front, simply clips off here like that, and then that exposes the mesh, and then the mesh just comes out quite easily and can just clip back in quite easily as well. Now you can take the mesh out and then just put the front cover on without the mesh, which will aid airflow, but obviously the dust might come through a little bit more, so that's up to you. But as we can see here, we have the three ARGB fans, which actually all plugged in to the controller here, which is actually at the back of the case, which is the IQ controller. And as you can see there, it clips in quite nicely back. So that's the front. Let's move on to the top now. So looking at the top I/O here, a big clicky power button, which is nice, 2 USB 3 ports, a combined headphone and microphone jack, and a little reset button there too. A pretty typical I/O. I think it's quite good. It does the purpose. Would have been nice to see USB-C, but I'm not really too bothered about that. A removable dust cover. Now this actually exposes the fans here, where you can potentially mount two 120mm fans or two 140mm fans. Now in terms of radiator support at the top, I would suggest a 240 rad at most. You could possibly get a 280 rad at the top, but motherboard clearance is going to be a real problem here. Now moving around to the back of the case, you can fit one 120mm fan at the back there, and it has enough movement up and down if you need to place it up or down. Your I/O cutout obviously, and this is actually quite nice. The 7 PCI slots are actually replaceable, so they're not like the snap out ones. And obviously our ATX power supply cutout here at the bottom. Let's move on to the bottom. This is where the hard drive or potentially SSD drives will be. You can fit two 2.5 inch drives, or you can fit two 3.5 inch drives at the bottom of the case, which is sort of inside the power supply shroud. Here you have a removable dust filter. So if I just, there we go, just removes out there, and then you can just slide it back in. And for pretty decent sized feet, they're probably about an inch or so, or maybe 2 centimeters I would say, of clearance there, so I quite like that. That's quite nice, as it elevates it off the if you've got it on a desk, it elevates up a little bit, so your power supply at the bottom here will be able to have a bit more breathing room. Although you can actually mount the power supply up the other way, so the fan's actually pointing in towards the case, because there is some perforation there at the power supply point, but we'll have a look in a bit for that. So the rear, just a sort of standard panel, nothing special there. But we've got thumb screws here which aren't actually captive, which is a little bit disappointing. So first of all, looking at the back, we can see here that there is quite a bit of cable management space. I'd say probably an inch or so of cable management space, which should be enough for most power supplies, even if you have got the thicker cables here at the front. 2 caddies for 2.5 inch drives. This is like ideally for SSDs, but you could potentially have normal drives as well, normal hard drives, 2.5 inch drives there instead. This hard drive bay is actually removable. This will come straight out, but if you do want to keep the hard drives there, you can just pull these out here. This is actually the little box that you get for your accessories, which is nice. Obviously all your like mounting hardware and everything's there. These are pretty sort of standard plastic sleds. They're okay, they'll do the job. There's no anti-vibration pads or anything like that, which is a bit disappointing, but you know, it is a little bit of a premium case, but at the same time it's kind of more of a budget case, I would say. It's kind of in between, I would say, but certainly for £45 I still think that's a real bargain at that price. That's a really good price for this case. So you can get, as I said before, 2 3.5 inch drives there, or also you can put SSDs there if you want to, or you can fit 2 2.5 inch drives as well. This is the iCUE controller here. You will need a SATA to power it, and you will need a USB 2 port 3 on your motherboard. So that plugs into the motherboard, and then you install the iCUE software, and then you can change all the colours at the front here to what you want. Now if you don't install the USB 2 plug, and you only put the SATA in, it's just going to do like it's going to go for a rainbow effect at the front and just going to be there, and it's going to be non-customizable. But if you do plug it into a motherboard, you'll be able to customize exactly what colors you want, or if you want one static color, or you want it changing colors, or how bright the colors are and everything like that. So I think it's really good to have this controller here built in, because if you actually factor in the 3 fans at the front plus the controller, you're probably looking at about £45 anyway. The fact that I paid £45 for the whole case is a real bargain, because essentially it's like getting the case for free. So yeah, if you can get this for around the sort of, I would say anywhere for £60 or under, I'd say this is a really good case to get. Actually, before moving to the front, I just want to say about the power supply, it is a little bit limited here. You can actually move exactly where the hard drive bay is if you want it a little bit more forward, a little bit more back and what have you, but I would say anything up to about 150mm. Let's have a look actually with my tape measure. Okay, so it's about 200mm that you have before you hit the bay here. So probably about 150mm PSUs are going to be fine. You're going to probably just about have enough cable management space to sort of tuck everything there. However, I think for most people, as we're going sort of M.2 nowadays, I think a lot of people will just remove this bay totally, and then you have the whole area here for your PSU cables, which I think will really tidy up your build. Now let's move on to the front. Now for the front here, I would certainly advise that you undo these screws with the case face down like this. So there we go. So looking inside the 220T, obviously first of all we have our power supply shroud, which I think is really good. The clearance here is actually pretty good. Now the person I brought it off actually said they couldn't put a 360 rad at the front, so the clearance at the top here might be a bit of a problem. As you can see, the I/O is a little bit restrictive. I'll try and get that a little bit better on camera if I can, but at the front, at the top there, it's going to be a little bit tight if you're going to put a 360 rad, so you have to know exactly if your rad is going to fit or not. There is enough room here between the power supply shrouds, certainly to get a rad in, so that's good. Although I'd probably suggest either a 240 or a 280 rad at the front at max if you are going to do that. I think ideally this is actually an air cooling case, and I'd put in a tower here. So let's just go over some of the measurements here. Now for our graphics card, we've actually got quite a lot of room here for the graphics card. So it's a little bit difficult to measure the exact room, but there up to here is 30 centimeters, and so anything 30 centimeter card or 300mm card would be perfectly fine for this case. I think once you're sort of getting towards the 310 or the 320mm sort of card size, I think you're really getting onto the absolute maximum, and that your card will be right up to the fans or it won't fit. So I would say anything up to 300mm is fine for this card, or a 1 foot card, or 12 inches if you will. Now in terms of CPU cooler clearance, I would say you've got about 170mm there of clearance for your CPU tower, so I think for most towers that's going to be more than enough. We have pre-applied standoffs here. There are 9 standoffs in the ATX kind of classical format, although you can obviously put M-ATX and even potentially ITX. I would highly suggest not to go ITX, because you're going to have a very, very tiny board in a case which is quite full. So yeah, M-ATX could be perfectly fine here as well, and that's okay, but I really would suggest ATX in this case. The rubber grommets are nice. I quite like the fact that they've got rubber grommets here. I think that's a little bit more premium and makes the case look a little bit more premium. There's also a rubber grommet in the PSU shroud, so that will feed for your GPU cables, which is nice. As I said, the perforated PSU shroud, so if you want to put the PSU fan up facing rather than down facing, you could do that with this case, so that's a nice feature as well. So yeah, as I said, the main stars of the show though are these fans, really. This is what you're paying the money for. These Corsair SP120 fans. I do think they are really good when they're lit up, and at the moment I haven't lit them up, and what I'm going to do is going to do a build in this case hopefully next week, and we'll obviously then show you it all lit up, and it will be looking nice with a full build in here. So yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to that. Overall, my first impressions are really positive from what I've seen here. I think this is a good case. The only slight issue I think might happen is you might have a little bit of a problem with, as it's quite a small case, there might be a little bit of a problem with putting an ATX board in and trying to fit everything in. So you are going to maybe have to think about your build a little bit more, rather than if you're with a bigger case you can just kind of lump everything in and it's done and you don't have to think about it. So there might be a little bit more planning with this, but I think it'll be perfectly fine. I think the build will go perfectly well, and I'm looking forward to building this case. So guys, I hope you liked that video of the Corsair 220T RGB Airflow case. Like I said, I'm going to have a build in it soon, so hopefully next week. Just subscribe so you make sure you do get the notification when the build video of this case actually drops. And I hope you like this video. So I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.